Monday, everybody. Welcome back to the Couchside Judges. I'm Scott Fontana. Follow me on Twitter at Scott_Fontana.
And I'm Dan Urban. Follow me at the Dan Urban. Follow the podcast at Couchside Judges. Subscribe to us on YouTube, like all our videos. It's just audio, but still video.
Go back to all of the episodes, watch them all, like them all, and then share them all.
And as always, we talk judging in MMA, so make sure you read the scoring criteria.
They might think that I'm like joking, but I'm really saying to you, you should probably take all of the time out of your life and just do that thing that I just said.
We'll take the extra views.
Yeah, not we will. Like you've been commanded to do so.
Well, that's kind of the side effect of going back to everyone and liking it.
Yeah,
so we get more views.
I know. I just want people to do my bidding. That's really all it comes down to. Dan, how are you?
I'm okay.
You're okay, just okay.
I'm very happy the Giants won. I am very upset the ALCS didn't end tonight.
Well, I'm not.
No. It should have ended 4-2 in favor of the Rangers.
Oh, I see.
Dolis Garcia, I wish he would have pimped his home run a little bit more tonight. He had a grand slam.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, they were already up by 2 or 3 or
they won by 7.
Point, yeah,
they were
up by 3 already.
Yeah,
but still would have been perfect if he just walked around the bases, not even jog.
Mm-hmm.
Would have loved it.
Would have been really interesting is if he like went up to somebody and like kicked them in the groin, and then he was not penalized for it, but he was given a warning.
Exactly.
That would be very interesting.
That would.
I think that would liven up baseball a little bit if there was like at least 2 groin shots you were allowed without penalty.
You should be allowed that.
I don't know why I'm talking about this. This is kind of a random thing. This is unrelated to anything, obviously.
Completely unrelated. Yeah.
But I do think that would liven up baseball. I do actually. Speaking of kicking people in the nuts. All right, maybe not speaking of that, but I do want to get over to the fighting side. I don't care about baseball or football right now, man. We'll talk about that another time. Before we even get into the weekend events, and the officiating and the judging and the ringside doctoring and all this stuff that we're going to be talking about, we got to touch on the fact that there was a video put out. The video was shared by Bellator with MMA Fighting of the Bellator 300 postmortem in California.
Yeah, that was
a really cool thing to finally see.
I don't know why we can't do it every event. I
mean, I know a lot of reasons why we can't. I know, and I can understand some of the reasons why there is resistance to that idea, even from some officials and from regulators. But I mean, we saw it in action here, and granted, you could tell there's a little bit of like probably simplifying things and making sure things are a little bit more clear because, hey, there's people actually watching this time, and maybe we're going to oversimplify it in ways that probably a bunch of very experienced officials and regulators would not be talking in the way they were. But nonetheless, it was a very helpful look into what we hear officials talk about when they talk about a round, when they talk about why they scored a round one way or the other. So it was really interesting that this was put on camera in an official capacity from a commission for everybody to see. And I thought that was really fantastic.
Yeah, they had everyone in there, all the refs. The one thing that was interesting to me, especially, was when he asked Frank Trigg. He said, Frank, you were reffing that
Andy
fight,
Foster,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, Andy Foster asked Frank Trigg if he was reffing a certain fight they were discussing. I believe it was a 10-8 score. And he said, did you have 10-8?
Yes.
And Frank was like, I mean, it's kind of tough for me to score while I'm in there, but I think I was getting close. So I thought that was interesting that he asked the ref how he was scoring the fight.
I think it's interesting that they involved the whole conversation and the people in place there. But yeah, I think that is not surprising to me that someone who is refereeing cannot necessarily very distinctly say, yeah, I'm close to that, because he's thinking about other things.
Right. But
the idea was that, hey, were you thinking about stopping it?
Yeah.
Right?
But it makes sense now that we could put the other 3 judges in the cage and judge while in the cage.
Yes, we need to put more people in the cage. That's probably a great idea.
For sure.
Mm-hmm. I see no drawback.
I don't see one at all.
Sir.
I see comedy.
My friend.
Yeah.
I see comedy too.
Yeah, it'd be great.
That's not great, though.
I think it's great.
I mean, it's great for some people.
How about them pushing each other out of the way, trying to get a better look?
Yes,
that
great. Would be horrible. But get the ref out of the way. Excuse me, I just want to see how close this
Think
choke
of all
is
the gifts that we get.
God. This would be horrifying. I can't believe you've even put this into the world. It's a terrible
I
thing
put
to put
it in
out
the
there.
world before.
How dare you?
It's fantastic.
You are a horrible person. But nonetheless, to the point, we don't need to belabor this or anything because we've got a lot of stuff to talk about. But I was just glad to see this, and I think it was a proof of concept. Yes, we could put this out here. People could talk about it a little bit. And granted, they weren't discussing anything that was maybe hot on the tongues of anybody. You know, there wasn't really controversy on the judging side that came out of Bellator 300 in any way. Certainly not on the rounds and officiating aspects that were being spoken about.
Yeah, I wonder if this was a maybe we'll do it. And then they're like, okay, coming back, we'll do it.
No, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to speculate about that. I have no idea, but
because they keep everything close to the vest. They don't want this stuff out there.
But Andy Foster has always shown to be willing to do things a little differently than other officials.
I'm glad it was a major athletic commission that did it.
And nothing against any other commissions. We have sat in from an auditory standpoint on Kansas's postmortem for an Invicta show.
Right. That's not what I'm saying.
Kansas has been very open in that kind of thing. But yes, it's very different.
Saying that a big one like California or Nevada doing this puts more light on it, I think.
I think video is just what puts more light on it. People don't I bring this up because I think people understand it. It's kind of a touch point that a lot of people understand, but it's such a crappy thing to bring up, right? When Ray Rice decked his fiance on camera, people started to take athletes committing domestic violence against women in a very different way than before we saw it actually happen on camera. And the reason I bring that up is because I think in a similar sense, people don't really react to things that they hear or things that they read in the same way that things that they see.
Okay. I get what you're saying, but that was a brutal video.
I mean, it was horrible. I'm not trying to get into I don't want to break down the technique of Ray Rice destroying his fiance. I'm
not saying
obviously
that.
That's horrible.
I'm saying the shock value to that type of video.
It was very different. But I mean, listen, I write for a living, right? I understand where people like to get their information in 2023. They like video. That's where a lot of it's really going.
Yeah, if you can tell me what's going on, I'm down for that.
Exactly. So the point here is that, yes, we put a video out here. It's a lot different than even if someone was sitting in the room transcribing it and someone read about it later. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It is very different to watch it happen in real time. You can see how a conversation kind of unfolds, and people just naturally talk about things in a confident and clear way. And I think that's the type of thing that helped us understand this stuff a lot better, was talking to people who do it and hearing that conversation be done, you know? Most people don't get that. This is a peek behind the wall. You're not really a fly on the wall, because it's like they're sort of aware the fly is there and kind of making sure the fly understands what's going on. But it was still very helpful. I was glad that they did it, and I hope they do it again. And I hope other commissions see, hey, this isn't the worst thing to do.
Do it all the time.
Yeah. But anyway, let's focus in on UFC 294, because like you said, we do have a lot to talk about in very myriad capacities here. Before we get to those even too, let's real quick, we like to do our little opening, kind of unfolding what's happening from UFC 294. I want to start with Islam Makhachev. Obviously got an emphatic win over Alexander Volkanovski, knocked him out first round. Head kick, follow-up strikes ended it, and Volk was very definitely out. Absolutely no questions or controversy about who was the better man on that particular night, or if afternoon, if you want to call it, based on the United States. But this is in UAE. The question I have for you, my friend, how do you beat Islam Makhachev? Because now, like, you think about it, it's like, well, you got to keep him on the feet. It's like, maybe he's not going to finish these top-level guys like someone like a Volk. And he finished him very cleanly.
Outside interference with a chair.
Special guest referee.
Yeah.
Stone Cold's the ref, and he delivers a stunner.
For sure.
Okay.
That's what you do.
Interesting.
But a lot of people made sense. The one fight I want to see now is like, I love Charles Oliveira, but I kind of don't want to see that fight next now. I want to see Justin Gaethje versus Islam.
I do think that we still have the key to beating him is to keep it upright. I think that's really where you want it. But now you just have to be you have to respect the striking, because the power is there.
I think everyone always respected his striking. It's just that
to a certain degree, sure.
It's just that his grappling is where he's best.
Right.
like, I'd say on a scale from 1 to 5, like his grappling's a 5 and his striking compared to his grappling's like a 3.
Oh, 1 to 5 being the best.
Yeah.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't disagree. I do think people respected his striking to at least some degree. I don't think people thought of him as like a Damian Maia kind of thing where it's like, well, he's kind of useless standing. But
it's a lot to think about while you're in there.
If you're knocking somebody out, on the come up or something like that, it's a little different, or finishing them on the ground. It's a lot different than when you finish someone in a championship fight, especially someone who's a fellow champion who's never been stopped before.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big deal. And I think that's the type of thing that should be able to change the perception of a fighter in terms of, well, how much respect can you end up giving them? Because, well, now we've seen him knock out someone who's never been knocked out before. This isn't someone who's getting somebody who's chinny. This isn't somebody who, maybe was out of his league. I think we understand that Alexander Volkanovski is very much in his league.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So to see that, but yeah, I think I would agree. It's definitely got to be somebody who can keep it standing, and outstrike him. Probably somebody who can take away his legs. That's why I do like the idea of a Gaethje, but I wonder if Gaethje's got the takedown defense to hold up.
I mean,
I don't know about that.
He's a very good wrestler.
Yeah, maybe not the best defensive wrestler.
So it's weird. It's like
especially against someone like when we saw it against Khabib, it didn't quite work out.
Right, but the thing with Islam is he's good everywhere. So even you got to worry about, like, when Israel Adesanya fought Sean Strickland. Sean Strickland didn't have to worry about getting taken down or any grappling really at all. He just had to worry about striking, because that's not what Izzy's going to do.
Sure.
That's not the case with someone like Islam.
Yeah.
So
he's got a lot of weapons.
Very well rounded.
Yeah. He's a real problem. We're gonna have to start asking whether he or Khabib is the better talent at some point. I don't know if I'm ready to get into that conversation yet, but so we got other things to talk about.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll have another chance to talk about it, so we can table that conversation. But I think it's interesting.
He's only got 2 defenses under his belt against one guy from 45.
Khabib didn't have too many either, man.
So I know that's true.
And yeah, there's the one loss, but then there's also, people will point out the Gleison Tebow fight, which I think we got to revisit too at some point for maybe past judgment.
Yeah, I think Gleison definitely won.
We'll talk about that another time. Let's go on to Alexander Volkanovski though, because obviously it's a big setback for him. I don't know that we're ever going to see him at 155 as against Islam Makhachev again. Do you ever want to see him, period, at 155? Or would you rather stick him?
Nah, just keep him where he's great.
145, yeah. That's how I feel. I wrote a whole column about it, actually. If you want to go read it at nypost.com/MMA, you'll find it there. But yeah, I would agree. I think he needs to stay where he's great.
Mm-hmm.
I like how you said that, because that's more or less what I wrote about last night.
Nice.
Yeah. You didn't read my stuff. I know.
I didn't know.
I know. No. Not a reader.
I never even know when it's out. You used to tell me when it was out, and then I'd go open it and read it.
Hey, damn, it's out now.
But okay.
Yeah, you can read it.
But you used to tell me.
Look,
hey, I wrote this column.
Let me wait here, and we're gonna pause the show. Well, we're not gonna pause the show. We're just gonna let dead air, and you're gonna read.
It's gonna be a while.
Read it in your head. That's fine. That's fine. This is what people wanted to tune into our show for.
I've been trying to read the Killers of the Flower Moon book before we go see it next week.
Bro, just watch the movie.
I know, but I want to.
What do you mean next week? We're seeing it in like 2 days.
Yeah, but it is technically next week, right?
Sunday's a new week.
Okay, so this week we're gonna see it.
It's Monday today, sir.
I wanted to read the book.
Everyone's listening to Monday.
Yeah, that's true.
It's actually Monday right now.
All right.
Anyway, we're getting into semantics here. Yeah, you don't want to see him at 55. I don't really want to see him at 55 either, unless, like, look, if there's a lot of money being thrown at him to fight, like, somebody, which probably the class would be Connor, and I don't think that's going to happen. Yeah, keep him at 45, man. Yeah. I think he could still continue to do damage down there. I think, there's the whole... I saw Luke Thomas talking about this, like the curse of 35, where fighters kind of drop, especially under 170 pounds, they drop kind of precipitously at age 35. He is 35. I don't know if we're going to see that with him, man. I know this is a setback, but I still feel like he is distinctly ahead of everybody at 145 pounds in a way that other people really have not been for a while.
I think January will tell us everything.
I mean, sure. It will,
when he fights Ilya.
Yeah.
So
he might make Ilya look Cilia.
He could. Cilia, that's a biology term, right?
It sure is.
Cilia?
I believe cilia is isn't that the hairs on a single-celled organism that help it move around?
I don't know what the function is, but
I think that's what it is. I think they're the little hairs that are attached to a single-celled organism that help it move around.
All right.
Like an amoeba or something like that. And then there's the other type of hair that some of them have. We're going to make this a biology show now. There's one hair that's called a flagellum, I think. And that's another type of thing that they help move. Yeah. I'm pretty smart.
Yeah,
also, I might be making all this up. I don't think I am, but I said I'm really smart. And if I'm wrong, I'm really dumb.
Yeah.
Because I think I'm smart and I'm wrong.
Whatever.
Yeah. Anyway, more biology. Khamzat Chimaev. He's a person.
He is good.
They're humans.
He is
People are humans.
Yeah.
Did this particular human look like he would have been better than Sean Strickland in a title? The version we saw of him on Saturday.
Without the broken hand, for sure.
Okay.
Because that's what I don't think he got tired. I think he broke his hand and was like, kind of like, oh, what do I do?
Okay.
I don't think
couldn't quite figure it out. Yeah.
I don't think there's a gas tank issue there. I do think he should be and would beat Sean Strickland. I think Usman would beat Sean Strickland. I kind of feel Sean Strickland is just a placeholder, and I guess that's a bit unfair because he just beat Israel Adesanya.
You can assign what you want to him. He hasn't proven enough over time.
It's more that Izzy had a bad night. I don't want to go back into that. But,
Sure.
So
it's a whole other conversation.
I think Khamzat, hands down, beats Sean Strickland.
I would have tended to agree, and I still think, you put the two of them against each other, I would think that Chimaev finds a way to win, but I don't know. I can't rule it out. I really can't. I don't know what it was that hampered him on that night. Yeah, you might be right. But also, it really might have been that he got tired, or it could be a combination of both. And we don't know what
I don't know. He wasn't.
Chimaev looks like over 5 rounds. We've never seen him in a 5-rounder. He's avoided that so far.
I think the fight with Burns was a more taxing fight than what we saw on Saturday, and he didn't really look that tired.
I guess. It's also now a year and a half ago.
Yeah, I mean,
it's been a while, man. We have not seen a whole lot of Chimaev.
From the guy who fought twice in 10 days, right?
Yeah.
He did during
I think was it 10 days or was it? Yeah, I think it was 10 days. I think you're right. Yeah, he's not kept very busy
taking
for a while.
Breaks.
Yeah, big long break. Now that he's at 185, and I think probably absolutely 100% done with 170, that doesn't look like a possibility anymore.
Plus, he had that terrible bout with COVID, like where he was like, I might be done.
Sure.
Fighting, so.
Yeah, a lot has changed him over the years, from a biological standpoint. See what I did there? But I don't know. I don't think Sean's. I'm kind of inclined to feel like you. I actually think that Kamaru Usman would have a better chance of beating Sean Strickland than Khamzat Chimaev. I actually do.
Okay.
And I do still think there is an argument to be made for, and we'll get into this probably on the contested rounds, but I do think there's still an actual argument to be made that in the right commission, if that fight takes place, Kamaru Usman might actually win the fight.
I know where you're going. I disagree wholeheartedly, actually.
All right.
Like, a lot.
Let's save it for
and that's actually a round we probably were supposed to talk about for a 10-7.
Let's talk about it when we get to contested rounds. We can lead off with that, even though it's not a contested round. But anyway, let's move on to not contested rounds. We're not even adventures officiating. We'll save that for a bit. Let's talk adventures in ringside doctoring, my friend. Which is a new segment that we hope never comes back. But I think we've got to address this here because we had, this is a very rare occurrence. I feel like it's happened before, but it's hyper rare. 2 no contests occurred at UFC 294 in Abu Dhabi. Both handled very differently by the ringside doctor, a cage side doctor. Let's start with the one on the main card. Magomed Ankalaev. This is obviously the later of the two. Magomed Ankalaev versus Johnny Walker is ruled a no contest in the first round after Ankalaev lands a blatantly illegal, probably not purposefully illegal knee to the chin of Johnny Walker. Doctor comes in, is checking him out, having some sort of conversation. It's kind of hard to truly piece together. I think they asked him what country he was in, right? Or something like that, which I think it was Matt Brown, the immortal Matt Brown, posted on Twitter that Johnny Walker is the type of guy to not know what country he's in no matter what's going on. So, maybe not the right question. Maybe there's a language barrier. Maybe there's a lot going on here. Felt like not enough chance was given to Johnny here to establish that he was of sound mind and body to fight. Because, I mean, I don't know what you thought of that knee. That didn't look like the most devastating of knees to have finished him off or anything.
Well, he ate it fine.
Yeah.
He okay, you just need me. The fight was, halted rightfully so,
Mm-hmm.
for the foul. And just one thing, I don't know, did you see any of the post-fight stuff? I believe it was Megan O'Leary who reported that he, according to Johnny's coaches, he answered, "I'm in the desert." To
I'm
that
in the
question.
desert.
So, and then John Anik pointed out, he goes, "Listen, if someone asked me what country I was in, I'd say Abu Dhabi, and I'd be wrong,
Yeah.
because that's not the country."
Correct.
And they also said that he much would have preferred having a translator come in and translate in his native tongue. So
I mean, it does get tricky there, right? Because you can have a translator who's kind of feeding different answers on his behalf, right? You know,
you could,
and I can understand why that gets a little bit into a gray area.
If you have a neutral party as the translator,
we can find different questions for Johnny to answer other than this country that you basically never go to. Where are you?
Yeah.
You know, because yeah, seriously, there might be some people who might say, I'm in Abu Dhabi, which is, I mean, technically it's an answer to where you are, but it is not the correct answer to the question that's being asked. So I don't know what the doctor's looking for. But this doctor we'll get into a second doesn't seem to understand where, certain pieces of anatomy are when they're impacted by other pieces of anatomy from other fighters. There's a whole lot of biology going on today. I thought this was handled poorly. We had Dana White afterward was saying this was an inexperienced doctor and maybe there was a language kind of thing, and who knows how much of this is, but like realistically, the UFC is essentially the commission here.
Mm-hmm.
They're putting all these people in place. They're also the people who allowed, I believe it's at least 3 fighters to fight with staph infection.
I think it was 2.
It's minimum 2.
Then there was a third person that got sick.
Okay.
During fight week or something.
It was Victoria Dudakova was talking about, I had staph infections that are like essentially bleeding on like parts of her body she didn't want to get into.
Yeah.
Who was the other one who had the staph? I can't remember.
Staph was Mike Breeden, I think, or Breeden fell ill. Not sure who the other.
There was definitely a second one though, and it's escaping me at this moment. But yeah, I mean, I would say the UFC felt very short here, unfortunately.
Well, we've seen other fighters fight. Remember that open sore that Matt Hamill had on his back?
Yeah.
That was like,
it's not the first time for sure. But to get back to the doctor here, I mean, this doctor, I'm sure is a competent doctor, but again, I thought completely dropped the ball on this fight, especially because I don't know that it needed to be stopped. Because realistically, if you're stopping it because this fighter is compromised in a way that Johnny Walker certainly didn't seem to be. I mean, how many points when legal strikes are landed and then they continue to fight on would fighters be in the state that Johnny was in?
Yeah, I think he was 100% fine.
He looked normal, like
he was
fully normal.
Fine.
He kind of always looks a little spaced out,
I handled poorly. It made me think of another thing for the rules. I think there is no such thing as an accidental foul. Like, you foul them. You threw the knee. There's nothing accidental about that.
Right.
I mean, maybe it's accidental. You didn't want to foul.
You weren't intentionally trying to commit something illegal so that you would get in trouble.
It's like in basketball. A guy goes up for a shot. You try to block it and you catch part of his hand. Okay, sorry guys, he didn't mean to do that. We won't give him free throws.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I feel a no contest.
They should
is handled.
do that.
It should just be a DQ.
Mm-hmm.
If a fight ends because of a foul, DQ. That's it. It takes so much. It would take a lot of pressure off referees to make calls. That's it. You fouled. The fight ended because of it. You lose. That's it.
I see what you're saying. I don't know if I'm necessarily agreeing with you yet, but I don't hate it on the surface. I don't know. I'll think about it. I'll give you another answer another day. I'm not there yet.
In this fight, I'm okay. It's fine. But the next one we're going to talk about, that should be DQ 100 out of 100.
You know what? Actually, let's move on to that other fight because I think we probably conquered this one. Javid Basharat against Victor Henry. Basharat, they have a round one. Everything, it's a competitive round one. And then Basharat just nails Victor Henry in a way that there's no way that Victor Henry could have potentially faked or looked for a way out or whatever. And not just because of his reputation. Forget that. I know what a man writhing in pain looks like.
He has a reputation?
Can't act what?
He has a reputation.
As a tough guy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, as someone who doesn't want this stopped.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, forget that. Put that aside. I don't need to know anything about these two individuals to watch a man who's writhing in pain after a low blow. Like,
the way he fell, my God. He just drops to his knees. He's like, oh.
No one does that on purpose. You know, like you can't fake it the way it was. It's ludicrous to think that. So when the doctor comes in and has the gall to say, no, it landed on your leg. And I love the immediate reaction from the commentary booth here, particularly John Anik, where they're like, "Oh, come on!" You know, it was like it was very much like what everyone was thinking, and you just don't see John in particular react so viscerally right away. Mm-hmm. But it was totally warranted, and I'm glad he did, because this was absolutely a representation of how ludicrous this situation was, where the doctor is telling him where he got hit.
No, you didn't get
BS.
hit there. You didn't get hit there, Scott.
BS. I mean,
oh, it's so bad.
Amateur hour. Again, I'm sure he's a fine doctor. I don't think he doesn't understand where the anatomy is, but I mean, have you ever seen a person in pain before? Like, come on. This guy definitely got hit. I mean, could it have been that it was pinched or whatever? I don't want to talk about the distinct way in which his, junk was damaged, but
Scott, nobody in the history of the world has reacted to a flush inside leg kick that landed like that in that fashion.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
So, 100% square on the cup. Boom.
And he can't I mean, come on. Like, obviously. Now, look, okay, you know what? They stopped the fight at least, and it was called a no contest. I think you're right. I think in this case, I actually wouldn't mind seeing a DQ for Basharat here, because it's so damn shit. But I think there's precedent for this one to be a no contest. The one I always think of, and I was talking about this with a coworker after this happened. And he was like, "Have you ever seen a fight end on a groin strike before?" And for whatever reason, I was blanking. The only one that came to mind was the one I always think of as the worst groin strike. Chris Tuchscherer. You remember Chris Tuchscherer, the heavyweight? It was Brock Lesnar's teammate. Way back, he was fighting Gabriel Gonzaga. Can't remember the round, but he just gets nailed in the bits, and I believe he had to get stretchered out, if I'm remembering correctly. This went on for a while, and he had to get taken out, if I'm thinking right. Victor Henry ends up going to the hospital because of this. It's like, you don't go to the hospital because you got inside leg kicked. I'm sorry. Yeah. That's not what happened. Not absolutely insane. Can you think of another fight that ended on a groin strike? Like, let's say in the UFC. Let's limit it to that.
I remember Bellator not too long ago. The guy got hit twice, like so hard.
Eric Pringle, right?
So hard. I don't remember.
That's way back in the tournament days. I think you're right. I think I remember that one.
It was recent though.
Oh, I'm thinking of a really old one. I'm thinking Eric Pringle. I think that happened.
I don't know the fighter's name, but he took two in the same round, and he was down for a while for the first one. Then he got crushed with the second one. I think they're like, all right, this is over. I don't remember this.
Was that his name, Eric Pringle? Or is it? I'm Googling Eric Pringle right now, and the first thing that's coming up is somebody who worked on the television series Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends and the movie Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs 2. So I don't think I'm thinking of the right person, but there's and it's not Percy Pringle, because that is, of course, Paul Bearer. But I could swear there was someone who fought for Valentine. It doesn't matter. We're so off topic here, but
Basharat has ruled himself a winner by TKO. I don't know if you've seen this.
Is that right?
He's been battling Josh Barnett. He's saying he's faking it. This is garbage. I watched it 1,000 times. It's a clean kick to the inside leg.
That's horse.
And Josh Barnett is like, dude. Or he sidestepped him. He went to his coach, because I guess he respects his coach. He's like, get this guy under control. Mm-hmm. This is absurd.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to get to the point where Josh Barnett's going to, you know what? I'm releasing the photos. I'm showing you how bad you kicked him in the groin.
Let's hope not.
That's where it's heading.
No, it's not.
It's escalating to that.
I'm just going to imagine it's not. I'm going to live in that world for a little while until it changes. If I don't have to live there, I won't. But yeah, I really would have been okay with a DQ here. I think it probably is up to the referee in this particular case. This wasn't Lucas Bosaki.
I don't believe so.
Okay,
no.
Lucas Bosaki is the other one that we're about to talk about, actually. In our adventures in officiating.
Yes, Lucas. Yes, this was his. Was this the second fight he did
of the day? I don't remember if it was the second fight. It was the third fight on the card.
Yeah, I think it was his second one, because in the first one there was two groin strikes where no point was taken.
The fight here we're talking about, by the way, is Muhammad Naimov getting the win over Nathaniel Wood. Won the first 2 rounds. Wood wins the third. I think round 1 was pretty close, but we're not going to talk about that really. What we are going to talk about is the fact that throughout especially the first 2 rounds, but I think even in the third round, Naimov just doesn't care about landing low blows, doesn't care about grabbing the cage to prevent a takedown and then landing his own takedown, all this stuff. It's just fouls with impunity.
How about grabbing the glove?
Grabbing the glove. I mean, every foul under the sun.
Up kicks, maybe? up kicks to a grounded opponent? Possibly.
I don't remember that. I was just watching it, but I don't remember that distinctly. Maybe
could have been another fight. Could have been another.
But at any rate, Naimov is committing fouls just left and right, and he got, especially after the second groin strike, which the first one was harder. After the second groin strike, which like basically was the first strike of the second round.
It was right away.
Lucas Bosacki, a very veteran referee from Poland. We've seen him probably every time they go to Abu Dhabi. He's even judged before, and I thought he acquitted himself pretty fine as a judge too. So to see him be so permissive of so many of these fouls, it got to be comedy at a certain point, and that's really not a place you want to be. I don't think. I don't think you want it to be comical how much a fighter is able to get away with cheating, like blatant cheating, and just like absolutely no repercussions. A warning is not a repercussion. I'm sorry, it's just not. A harsh warning, I don't care how harsh you make it. You call it a 12 out of 10 harsh warning, it doesn't change anything. There's still no penalty.
Yeah, I don't like how seems like a lot of commissions are like, we don't want to influence the decision.
A lot of officials will say this. So, they kind of want to stay out of it unless they need to, right?
Yes, it's like, but
you didn't need to here.
They're like, 1 point is it takes away a win in a 3-round fight. It's detrimental. It's
here,
like, well,
good.
Don't foul.
Here, good. Absolutely should have.
Don't foul.
Because we had, I mean, the most blatant stuff here is, of course, the low blows. I thought, again, the first one, there's damage there. There's real damage. Penalize that. I don't care if you don't want to get involved. You don't want to stop that kind of, you don't want to punish somebody for that. They made a giant mistake. Sorry. They're going to have to live with it. We live in a world of consequences, and fighting is its own consequences. But you can't just, we have it on the books for a reason. Like, if it's not going to get penalized, take it off. Allow them to kick each other in the nuts. I mean, I kept thinking to myself, and I'm like, you know what Nathaniel Wood should do at some point? Just soccer kick him, just to see what would happen. Would he get a warning after being fouled just repeatedly throughout? If he gets one soccer kick off, what happens? What happens at that point?
That's true. That is a good point.
If I'm a fighter and my opponent is like blatantly fouling without repercussion, I'm going to start blatantly fouling without repercussion, and probably to a higher degree. And just to see, because it's like at some point the referee can't punish you because they didn't punish the other person either. Like, they've lost control of that fight if that starts to happen.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, how often do we see in the NFL, the retaliation's what gets flagged? Yeah. So
100%. And that's probably what would happen realistically. But again, I don't even think Lucas Bosacki is a bad official. I really don't. But I think he absolutely 100% lost control of that fight and lost control of keeping things within the rules. And I don't think he did a good job in that fight. I think he did a bad job. And I think he did a disservice to Nathaniel Wood, who realistically shouldn't have left with anything less than a draw in that fight. You could argue he even won round 1. That's not the point. The point is he should not have had to deal with all of the fouling. The fact that, again, there was a takedown that was prevented by a cage grab, which then turned into very, very rapidly thereafter a Naimov takedown. It's like, when are we punishing these people? I know you don't want to punish fence grabs and that kind of thing, and there's not so much you could do either because they don't want to put you in different positions and stuff. So when are you going to penalize them?
Got to do something.
It's just ridiculous.
I think points are perfect. Take a point.
Take a point.
Take a point.
Sorry, it's just the way it should be. So I was really fired up about that one. I did not like to see that. I thought Nathaniel Wood got done wrong, and I don't think there's anything he can do. He could appeal, but like, who's he going to appeal to? The UFC? The UFC's not going to do anything about it. Yeah, no. And either way, like, realistically, this is still the referee's decision. But I think the referee made a lot of permissive decisions to the point that he lost control of the fight, and I think that's a bad job. I hate to say it, but that's absolutely what happened, and I feel bad for Nathaniel.
I think Scott said it.
I think so. Going on to the judging. Unanimity report. 18 out of 23 unanimous rounds for a 78.3% unanimity. No 8-9 splits. We're only going to be talking about 5 rounds of who won. Not a bad night, I think, for the judges. I think they did okay.
Pretty good.
But we're going to be talking about 2, and realistically, we're going to talk about a third round, all 3 rounds in Khamzat Chimaev's win over Kamaru Usman. Majority decision, 2 29-27s, and a 28-28. We had a unanimous round 1 as a 10-8, which, first off, we've got to ask the question, is that a 10-7?
It's not a 10-7.
Okay. Yeah, 100%.
But I think it is a slam dunk 10-8.
You know,
and
It's funny. You please finish your thought. I don't want to interrupt you.
I think to circle back to like a post-mortem discussion, I think if I was like the head regulator or whatever of the UFC or of the commission and I'm hosting that meeting, I would be a little upset at a 9.
Okay.
For a round like that, I'd say I do think we have all 3 Ds. Damage maybe not the highest.
I don't think we have damage. I really don't.
But he was landing some heavy shots, especially right when it gets to the ground. He lands like 5 or 6 hammer fists, and you're thinking, oh my, he's gonna stop him right here, and it doesn't happen. He fights back, but then he has the back for like 4 whole minutes, body triangle for like close to 2.5. He has that super tight rear naked choke that Usman has to stand up and try to dump him on his head to get out of. That's not technique. That's desperation.
Sure.
I think that gets put into the category of grappling damage. The duration and dominance were such to a high degree that I don't think the damage has to be that high to pull an 8 there.
I don't disagree with anything you said.
All right.
But I did put a 10-9 on my unofficial card that doesn't matter for literally anything. But they did put my card up on the broadcast. But I did make it clear that if you don't mind the damage not being there, this is an 8.
Yeah,
I wanted to make sure that people understood that, like, there's not the damage I don't think is there, but that realistically we saw it even in the video from Bellator 300 just the other day. Andy Foster made a point of explaining it more to people. I felt like, again, watching the video than people in the room who probably know that. Maybe it's something it would have been enhanced. We've sat in on California Commission, the training meetings with Andy, and Andy certainly speaks like that to other officials as well. So it's not necessarily totally out of place, but he reminds people that, listen, we kind of want that damage to be there. And I'm trying not to do an Andy Foster impression because I respect Andy. But he wants the damage to be there, and that's going to be coming at some point in the revision process of the ABC scoring criteria that they're using, that this is coming. You're going to want damage there. They're going to find a way to get it in there. It's not in there yet, but it is essentially being enforced in places like California, in Nevada, which is where a lot of these fights happen. A lot of Bellator happens there in California. A ton of UFC happens in Nevada. This is where most of the major fights are happening, and that's how it's being scored. So if you go by the standard that we have seen at most levels, I love an 8 there because I do think it's a different round, like I often say. It very distinctly is not a 9 in the sense of that, but how strict are they with the lack of damage being there? I don't know. This is why it's so messed up that we don't have it on the books yet. It needs to be clarified. If they can't get this on the books by next year for the commission conference, I'm trying to search the word conference. If they can't get it for the next conference, like, what are we waiting on? How hard can this be? If someone needs input, happy to share. I know how to word things. I know how to put this down. But we need to get it on the books because it's amorphous. It changes based on where you are, and I don't think it's right because this looks like an 8 to me. But what do they want? I don't know anymore.
The thing is, I do think we have damage. I think that's the argument. He was landing good punches. These weren't just pitter patter. Also, Kamaru Usman is shut out for this round.
But that's large margin. They don't want large margin.
It is a gigantic margin.
They don't care about large margin anymore. That's not what judges want anymore. Or commission officials, I should say.
He still did 0 offense. Like, did he earn a 9? I don't think at all.
No, absolutely not. Kamaru Usman most definitely did not earn a 9. Like, absolutely not.
So that's my thing. I think at best on that night, Usman can win a draw. Or, yeah, at that point, it's a win if you get a draw. That's how I feel. So
sure, if he escaped with a draw.
I saw...
and we did have a draw on one of the cards.
I said 3 people's scores that I do respect. I respect Jay Petrie, I respect you, and I respect Sean Sheehan. You all had it the same way, 29-28 for Usman.
You respect me?
I wouldn't do the show if I didn't.
Oh.
And I see you guys, but I'm like, man, what are you guys watching? That's kind of what I felt like. I was like, I can't be on an island here.
But again, I don't think you're wrong. Like, I kind of think I'm wrong. As weird as that is. Even when I put it, I felt wrong. That's why I made sure to explain it.
Yeah.
But I'm left in this spot, and I obviously I've made it clear. My score doesn't matter. I'm not a judge. I'm not an official judge. I've I've passed the training, but no one's ever said, "Hey, dude, you wanna go judge these fights here?" And I've never sat and done it, so I'm not a judge. Like, my opinion is limited to that, right?
Be like those old school like MMA like underground fights. Hey, we need an opponent. Anyone want to fight this guy?
Well,
Like,
well,
hey,
that's how a lot of people became judges too.
Anyone want to judge this fight?
That's how people became referees. It was like, we need somebody, so come on in. We've heard that story before, man. Yeah. It's actually kind of common, weirdly enough. But man, I really felt like I was wrong. But we're left in this weird place because of a lack of clarity in the criteria, and it needs to be there. It just needs to. It's so ridiculous that they have been unofficially doing it a certain way for 2 years, but we haven't bothered to get it on the books. Get it on the books. Get it on the books.
I felt, especially from where we were, I felt extremely confident that was 8 across the board.
Sure.
From where we
and it
where,
was
where it took place,
and ultimately it was. I don't want to keep beating this dead horse, you know. It was a 10-8 across the board, and again, I'm actually very glad it was. It kind of almost restored my faith in a weird way, right? But yeah, to kind of circle back to answer and move on from the original question, yeah, this is not a 10-7. I don't think it's coming close. The damage is certainly not overwhelming, you know. It's not. You don't even sit
I wasn't gonna get there.
All right. You kind of paused waiting for me. I'm like, no, you gotta agree with me.
Here's what I thought. Dominance was next level.
Dominance was next level.
I thought duration was next level.
It was pretty close. Yeah, I don't mind it.
And I thought damage got there.
No,
I didn't think it got to next level. It certainly didn't come close to overwhelming.
When you say there, you mean 8.
It got there,
not to 7. Right.
Yeah, it went over the notch.
Yeah, we're an audio podcast. When you do your hand thing, no one saw that. Yeah,
no one saw my hand.
No one saw your hand.
Okay.
Yeah, again, still 7. It's just the way it is. And the damage is definitely the most important thing, I think, for the 7. So without that, I mean, if we're only talking about maybe it's there for an 8, certainly there for the 7s.
No, not for sure.
All right, but let's move on to actual contested rounds here, because that was the 10-7 watch, which we actually didn't put on here, but now we're talking about it, so that was good. We got it in. We didn't have any other 8s, right? No. I thought so. Let's go to round 2, because this is actually a contested round. And both rounds 2 and 3 are contested, and they actually have an impact on the actual final result of this fight. So let's talk about round 2. Why don't you set up what happened?
Yeah, I don't think really anything of significance happens for 4 minutes. They each throw, a couple jabs, couple leg taps. Nothing of real intent or good impact on it. Not sure anything even landed that cleanly or strongly. But around a minute left, Usman lands 2 good shots to the head and a strong leg kick. That's really what put it over for me. And this is an Usman round. There was that takedown, but nothing happens off that. Straight to side control from Khamzat. I think maybe he landed a body shot, maybe. Nothing really there. Kind of a terrible round.
It was a crummy round. It was a come-down round. And obviously, like you're saying, and Khamzat is saying that he's coming off of, all right, I broke my hand in the first round. What am I supposed to do here,
Yeah, 10-9 Usman.
Yeah, I got 10-9 Usman. It's not like it's the most clear of rounds, and there's not a whole lot happening on the whole. So This isn't the type of round where I would go crazy either way.
Low volume.
I did side with Usman. I just thought that his lands were more effective overall, especially later in the round, like we're talking about, where we actually seeing some things kind of happen here. I'm not in any way like vehemently against Vito Paolillo giving it to Chimaev. So we saw it the majority. You and I with Derek Cleary and David Lethaby. Round 3.
I thought this round was much better than the second round.
Definitely. Oh, yeah. There's a lot more, and there's drama, too.
Usman seems to be landing better. Nothing exceptional, but Khamzat isn't doing much in return. Maybe a couple shots here and there before he gets it to the ground.
And like right at the midway point of the round, too. It was almost like a half demarcation.
He's kind of grinding Usman into the ground. Good shoulder pressure, a couple decent strikes, but gets back up with the final 30 seconds, and they just let the hands go. Usman, because Chimaev was finally like, my right hand, I guess it doesn't hurt in this last 30 seconds. I'm going to let it fly. I don't really think anybody landed much in that final 30 seconds.
I thought Usman landed a little bit better in there, actually. I did favor him a little bit.
In that final flurry?
Yeah, in the final flurry. I thought he was starting to get a little bit of it. Not just because he's coming forward. It's not the whole Diego Sanchez thing. I thought he actually managed to get, like, maybe it was just one in there. It wasn't fight-changing on that particular strike, but...
regardless, I like it for Usman. I don't have an issue either way. But I'm on Usman 10-9.
I don't have an issue, I guess, with it because It really comes down to how much you're supposed to weigh the grappling that's happening relative to the striking that had happened, right? I didn't think Chimaev accomplished a whole lot down there. He's in a decent position, but he's not using it very well.
No, he's just grinding the
He's
shoulder.
really not. Which, I mean, sure,
Yeah,
like
so-
that can diminish your opponent. You know, it's not negligible, but
It's more annoying, I guess.
yeah. I don't. I mean, you're not gonna finish a fight that way. That's for sure.
I'll say this. I did not score it live, but I felt like it was a Chimaev win at the end.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like round 2 was a toss-up, and round 3 was probably the best chance Usman had of winning a round. It was his best round, I guess, is what I'm saying. But I guess from coming off of round 1, when you're just thinking of the fight as a whole, it feels like he clearly should win.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of... I didn't score the individual rounds
Right.
until the rewatch.
Until the rewatch.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah, I was gonna say at some point you must have,
Yeah.
right? Because we
Yeah.
talk about this
Yeah.
stuff. All right,
Yeah.
just making sure. Clarify for the listeners as well. Yeah, I don't know. I really think this should be scored in Usman, but I don't have a problem with Derek Cleary scoring it for Chimaev. It just, which one of them is getting closer to finishing this fight? I do feel like what Usman's doing is actually getting a little bit closer. I'm not saying he almost finished the fight. Don't you know?
Yeah.
Don't take my words out of context, but one of them was doing something that was diminishing the opponent, I think, more and more effective in trying to get the fight to its natural conclusion. And I don't think it was Chimaev.
Yeah.
That's how I feel.
fair.
But again, there's a lot of room in the criteria for something like this to go the other way. So unless we clarify that in a meaningful way, there's certainly a reason that Derek Cleary scored it that way. And I don't think he's wrong. I feel good about the way I scored it for Usman. Same as you. And judges Paolillo and Leatherby also saw him our way. But again, and by the way, this is like one of the very few rounds. It's been a long time since I remember Derek Cleary being the out judge. And he's judged a lot of rounds lately, man. So the streak comes to an end, but man, I'm impressed with it. That was a real good run from Derek Cleary there. Not that it meant he was right every time. I think we went against him on some Couchside overrides, but we never thought any of the scores were bad anyway. But still, nonetheless, recognize some impressiveness when it happens on the judging side. So nice job on the whole this year by Derek Cleary. I just want to point that out.
Seemed like he took a bit of the summer off. He kind of was missing for a minute.
I don't know. I didn't
Probably.
notice.
You didn't notice?
I don't always notice. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I don't. Maybe he did. Maybe he went away. I don't know.
Hope he had a great vacation.
I hope he had an amazing vacation. I don't even know if he took a vacation, but I hope everybody has an amazing vacation.
Yeah.
Except for, especially, you know what? You know who really needs a vacation? That ringside doctor. Get his mind right.
Send him on vacation.
Anyway, this actually, it's kind of a weird fight. And I'm going to wrap this up before we move on to the next one in pointing out that this is kind of an alternative decision.
I knew you were going to go there. I'm glad you brought it up because I wanted to talk. I wanted to ask you about this.
Okay. Yeah, it kind of is an alternative decision because
how does it work?
We have Usman is the majority round winner in both rounds 2 and 3, but only Judge David Leatherby gave him both rounds 2 and 3. If for some reason round 1 had been scored a 10-9, and we don't need to get into that whole thing again. I think we covered it. This would have been a much more traditional alternative decision, like the way we talk about, because we have a one solid try round across the board, and then 2 rounds that the 2 judges, kind of different judges, ended up seeing it that way. So yeah, that would have been that. In an alternative world, we would look at this and say this is a draw because Usman won rounds 2 and 3.
So you're saying this is an alternative draw?
It's an alternative draw.
All right.
I think it's the first alternative draw that I can remember us talking about on this show. Good job coining that term, sir.
There you go.
I was not going to do that, so that's all you. Well done. Let's move on, though. We've got 3 more rounds to do, and I think we're probably a little less contentious than probably I don't even know if it's contentious, but
this is the most interesting round, actually, the one that we're talking about.
I still think some of them. I was fascinated in the breaking down the 8, but anyway.
Oh, that other than that, too.
Got you. Yeah. So we're moving on to Muhammad Makhachev getting the win, comeback victory over Tim Elliott via submission, arm triangle choke in the 3rd round, but he's losing this fight through 2 rounds. 2 judges had it 20-18 in Elliott's favor. They're split on round 2, so we do have 1 judge. Incidentally, it is Derek Cleary in this case, who had it for Makhachev. What's happening in this round? This is interesting. Yeah. You're right.
Right out of the gate, Makhachev shoots double and gets stuck in an arm and guillotine. Solid attack from Tim Elliott. probably not going to finish. And typically, the arm in doesn't really get finished that much.
It can happen.
It can happen. I'm not saying it can't, but he seemed okay. He wasn't panicking, and he does escape. But then Tim Elliott's landing really good off his back. Good elbows. Makhachev's not really returning fire much. He's just kind of, trying to control his posture and not get hit. And we're here for the duration of the round. Elliott's definitely ahead. And then, when Makhachev does stand up and he comes back down, he gets locked up in a triangle. It's a tight triangle. Makhachev's pretty much desperate here. He lifts him up and he pile drives Tim Elliott on his head, which, to correct DC, is allowed.
It is allowed.
It is allowed if you're in a submission. The person in the submission has control of their body to let go to prevent that.
In Celebrity Deathmatch, Judge Mills Lane would say, "I'll allow it."
In DC, he was all over the place.
As ever.
Anyways, after this, Elliott shuts down for at least a minute, and he's just hanging on. It looked like he was seeing stars to me.
And he kind of confirmed that after the round, apparently, too. They were saying that they had caught that on the audio between rounds 2 and 3, that he sort of was, he said he kind of, what is he?
Flash.
He flashed, that's right, that was the term, when that happened. So, yeah, I mean, if you can observe that in real time, great job.
Well, that's the thing. He just stopped. After he gets slammed, he's like, oh, boy. His demeanor's completely changed.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just kind of hanging on. Eventually, he does start throwing some strikes, but nothing like what we saw before. I completely agree that this is a round swing slam, and I am in the minority here, scoring this one for Makhachev.
You are, but man, I was really close. I think it's one of those things where I didn't identify it the same way in real time, that was that Elliott was really compromised in that way. And if the reason Derek Cleary gave it that way had to do with that, I mean, man, even more kudos to
depends
Derek
where he's seated.
Yeah, I didn't observe where the judges were for this particular round. But either way, I mean, Derek Cleary has credentials as a grappler, if I understand correctly, and would certainly understand this probably a lot better than I would.
It's tricky because
not just because he's a very hyper experienced judge.
The submission is in. It's locked in.
Yeah.
If he doesn't get dumped on his head, the guy's going to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
So
I gave a lot of points to that.
So it's really tricky situation here.
Yeah, I feel like this is one of those things where if you pick that up, it makes it a lot easier to go the other way. I didn't, so I have to be honest with myself, and I gave it a 10-9 Elliott. But yeah, hindsight being what it is, I feel even much easier giving it to Makhachev. You caught that in real time though, or you just waited that way?
In real time, I knew he's messed up. That he just got dumped on his head, but I'm also in real time. I'm thinking, DC, just let it go. You thought hair pulling was okay, and now you're just feeling to throw out things about the rules, and you were wrong on this one. And that's what was in my head most of the way. But like I said, I didn't score any fight live. Mm-hmm. In my head, I know that he's flashed. I don't know if that plays a part in my second viewing of the round to score it.
Yeah, that's true. That's
totally possible. Yeah. And that's where it comes in. Where was Derek Cleary seated? Can he pick if he's close by? Yeah, he can see that.
Sure,
most likely. So, but I do think it's very easy to point out that Elliott is not the same fighter after this.
Sure.
So
and yeah, as long as you can make that argument, especially in a postmortem, it's a very easy argument to make. And I mean, I like it. This is definitely a fascinating round. I did side with the majority for whatever that's worth, which again with Elliott, our scoring for Elliott sided with again Judge Leatherby and Daryl Ransom on this one, and you sided with Judge Cleary. Cleary's your guy,
clearly.
No, Bruce Buffer would agree though. 2 more rounds here. Let's go to. Well, we're circling back to Javid Basharat and Victor Henry. We know what happened here. Round 2, no contest. Illegal groin strike. I don't care about accidental. Illegal. Round 1 is split though. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, it's kind of a feeling out round, at least for much of the beginning of it. Both guys throwing a couple leg kicks early. I think as the round progresses, Basharat's the one that's opening up the attacks, more targets, landing a little bit more successfully. Henry's best work is that front kick to the body and his leg kicks. I kind of felt like this round was a race where anytime Henry wanted to, he could pass him and just chose not to. He just paced with him and never pulls ahead. I think Basharat by a hair, 10-9.
Yeah, I heard it that way too. I don't have anything really to add to that. I think you did just fine with there. So we both agreed with judges Ben Cartledge and Cesare Wojciechowski. David Leatherby was the judge on his own, seeing this one for Henry. But yeah, this is not around to get hung up on. And a fight didn't matter anyway. Technically, kind of didn't happen, except for all the damage that happened to Victor Henry's I guess ability to have children. Hopefully not.
Hope not, unless if he's already finished as him,
or
possibly.
Maybe he just doesn't want him. You know what? Maybe it's a blessing in disguise.
All right.
I don't know.
This fight had three, and it only had one official result, but they had three results. Bashrat thinks he won by TKO.
Sure, yeah.
The no contest, and I think it should be DQ.
Mm-hmm.
So what is it? I guess it's
a fight that never happened. It's not on their.
It's going to happen
again.
It's
a no contest.
They are definitely going to rematch again.
And now
for sure.
And now there's some actual bitterness there too. So God, watch this. This will probably be headlining at Apex.
He's getting one of those. If he doesn't already, Victor Henry will be buying one of those steel cups Joe Rogan talks about.
Oh yeah, he hasn't talked about that in a while. I feel like I don't think he talks about it as much.
He's off. He'll be back on it eventually. If he was on this fight, he'd be on it.
Yeah, but he doesn't travel.
I like that. I would love that job.
So yeah. What final round here? It was in Trevor Peek's win over Muhammad Yahya, 30-27, twice, and a 29-28. So this is not really the most dramatic of fights. It wasn't even a super great Trevor Peek fight. But we're split on round one, so let's talk about it.
Yeah, Peek's. Pick. I said pick. Peek sits.
Yeah, there's two E's there, sir.
Peek sits down Yahya briefly and gets a cage clinch, quick trip. Nothing really happens there. They work their way back up. Peek has him clinched against the fence. They're exchanging knees for a while. I do think Peek is winning this portion of the fight. When they separate, Peek landed some good leg kicks. A couple times off balancing Yahya. It's not really a large margin. Not even a big. He's just ahead, clearly, I think, at this point in the round. It's that last 20 seconds where Peek gets stuck in an anaconda. It's decent. I don't think it's that great. Defended well. I didn't think it got enough. I don't think it was enough there to take the round. So I'm on Peek 10-9.
Yeah, I didn't flip because of that. I think that's what it must come down to. I don't know what Judge Cartledge, who was the lone judge here, seeing it for Yahya, went that way. But I have to imagine that probably played a key role in it. I didn't get there. I always defer to someone of Ben's knowledge. He has been very helpful to us understanding as a former guest on our show.
Ben's great.
But yeah, I didn't go that way. I went for Peek. I thought that he did enough to, let's say, stave off what had happened in those final 20-ish seconds.
Yeah, you know what? I gave a lot of weight to when Peek was hitting the leg kicks while Yahya was standing on one leg and off balancing him. I thought those were probably the most effective strikes of the round. Okay. Outside of the knockdown.
Sure.
Of course, but yeah.
I feel that.
Yeah, and it wasn't a crazy knockdown. He just sat him down. Like, he didn't lose consciousness, he didn't lose control of his body. Just sat down and got back right away.
But yeah, we ended up in the majority here for Peek or Pick.
Pick,
yeah. Judges Vito Paolillo and Clemens Werner, who was also working this event. They both had this the same as you and I. And that is it for contested rounds. 5 finishes, not counting the 2 no contests, because those are not finishes. 3 KO or TKOs, 2 submissions, 3 fights were finished in the first round. What was your favorite of the 5?
Saeed Nurmagomedov snatching up the neck of Muin Ghafarov super fast.
So there was debate about this. I think they called it a guillotine choke. That's a ninja choke,
it's
right?
It's the ninja choke, the no-arm Dars.
Yeah.
The Dan Miller special. Whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. What about you?
I had Mike Breeden literally letting the dog out and barking his way to a comeback victory over Anshul Jubli. Right? That was his name, Anshul Jubli?
Yeah.
You saw him completely fade when Breeden starts barking and just letting out this primalness while he's doing it. It was so ridiculous.
He was roofing.
I couldn't believe that this is what turned the fight around. And
you gotta psych yourself up.
But how did this happen? It's like out of a movie, like a comedy movie.
And his eye was hanging. Like, the skin was hanging from his eyebrow. It's kind of gross.
Only in MMA, sir. This is a weird sport we have.
Hey, you got it.
But yeah, kudos to him to come back and get the TKO there, and he just he basically bullied and freaked out Anshul Jubli into a TKO in a lot of ways. That was a sight to behold.
Yeah, that was.
And again, he was down on all cards. It was 2018 Jubli up to that point.
Yeah, he was.
All he has to do is prevent defense.
Jubli was cruising
Because Lord knows they're not going to take any points from him.
Yeah, he got.
I mean, at some point he could have done the Caleb Starnes, or maybe even just turned around and ran. I don't think they're taking any points.
There's no points to be taken.
So whatever, just do whatever you have to do to hold on to win. If he's barking the dog, I mean, run away like you're being chased by a dog.
Yeah, I had a good tweet for this one too, and I'm kind of mad it didn't get put on the broadcast.
Oh, I'm sorry.
My other ones did.
You got some other ones on there. I saw.
But he flambéed Cherry's Jubilee. I thought it was perfect. Didn't happen. Didn't get up there.
Yeah, I didn't love it.
Guy's name is Cherry's Jubilee. He got flambéed. That's it. I got to think, if your last name is Foster, your nickname is automatically Bananas.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Australian for beer.
No, you're Bananas Foster.
I don't get it.
If your last name is Jubilee, your nickname should be Cherries, and it should be Cherry's Jubilee. And that's where I'm at.
Is that a food?
Yeah.
I legitimately don't know what you're talking about.
You don't know what Bananas Foster is?
No, I don't know what any of these things are.
Do you like bananas?
They're okay.
Bananas Foster.
My kids love bananas.
Bananas Foster on ice cream is all time.
Mm.
It's bananas cooked and with like brown sugar and a bunch of other stuff, and then it's topped off with like a rum. I would think it's a rum, which is flambéed, and it becomes this syrupy bananas, and you pour it over to ice cream, and it is absolutely delicious. And they do the similar thing with cherries, and it's called Cherry's Jubilee. And the guy's name is Jubilee, so it's kind of close to Jubilee.
No, I mean I get the pun there once you explained it.
There we go.
Yeah. Yeah,
and
I mean, I'm all in on puns.
You
man.
are
That's
a
not
dessert
the problem.
guy.
Yeah, but
I'm
shocked. I'm eating cookies and brownies and cake and crap.
Bananas Foster is next level.
It's always food with you. Holy macaroni and all this other stuff.
It is.
That's bologna. You love your food
always
stuff,
bologna.
man.
No, bologna doesn't count as a food because since the day you corrected me about the spelling,
it's still bologna, man. In America, we've come to that realization that we're just going to change it to bologna, even if it's not spelled that way.
My bologna has a first name.
It's like the word colonel. Like it's spelled colonel.
Yeah, that's right. Where's the R?
Mm-hmm. You got any biology lessons we want to get into before we get? Because we don't have any fights to talk about next week, so we could just talk about biology next week.
What's that song?
That
old song.
What are your references
biology.
all of a sudden? What?
Don't know much about history. Something. Oh, I don't know.
I was gonna let you go, man.
I
was gonna let you riff.
It's a song.
Well, either way, we don't have any fights to break down this coming week. We're not gonna get into anything. There's no UFC. There's no Bellator. There's no PFL. So we're staying away from that.
I don't know. Probably Slap because they advertise it 30 times.
Just gonna pretend
on
you
the
didn't
pay-per-view.
Say it. I don't actually hear the words that are coming out of your mouth right
so
now.
Stupid.
Oh.
You know what? When they advertise it, when DC's talking about it, it's like, I know you don't care for this at all. Like, you 100% think this is an absolute joke.
Mm-hmm.
And you're the one who doesn't care what he says usually. He'll usually speak his mind. Speak your mind about this ridiculousness.
Sir, you can believe what you want to if you're properly compensated.
I could shill for the best of them.
I bet you could.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just got to do your job, man.
All right, that does it. I'm not sure what we're going to do for next Monday. We'll have something fun, I think.
We'll figure something fun out, or maybe we won't. Maybe it won't be fun at all. I don't know. Check it out to find out.
It'll be a lot of fun.
We'll teach you some more about biology. I don't know. I'll plan a lesson.
Thanks for listening.
Take care, everybody.